Good morning, everybody, and welcome. My name is Brian Gobot. I'm CEO here at RackWare. Thank you for joining today's session. Our focus is going to be twofold, actually. Firstly, we're going to hear from John Priest, who's the Director of Product Management at Oracle. John is going to kind of walk us through why Oracle virtualization is such a great alternative to legacy and, growingly expensive data center technologies. After John, we're going to hear from David Gioso from RackWare. David's going to give us an overview of RackWare and a practical demonstration on how RackWare can be used both to migrate servers to Oracle virtualization and also protect them. David will be showing how cost-effective and efficient migrations to OLVM can be. And in fact, I think scale and efficiency is super important. And for context, we have customers migrating up to 5,000 virtual machines per month. Um, a little background on RackWare and Oracle. RackWare has been an Oracle partner since 2018. Our solution's been used both by Oracle and Oracle partners to migrate thousands of Oracle customers to many different Oracle platforms, including obviously OCI, private cloud appliance, cloud computer customer, dedicated regions, Alloy, and of course, OLVM. Couple of housekeeping things. Firstly, if you've any questions, please use the Q&A button. We have people on there who can answer them. And I think it's worth mentioning also, this is really kind of an introduction both to Oracle virtualization and to RackWare's ability to migrate and protect on that platform. If you've any questions, please feel free to reach out to John or the team here at RackWare. And with that, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce John Priest. John, please take it away.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you guys setting up the webinar and appreciate you inviting us to participate with you on this. I'm looking forward to a great session here today to talk about server virtualization and making the move to new server virtualization technology. So yeah, I'd like to keep these sessions interactive. We're trying to share with you some information. If you have any questions, like Brian mentioned, please put them into the Q&A window there. We've got people that can answer those, and then we'll try to reserve some time at the back end to go through some of those live also. So with that, I'm going to start things off today. And as Brian mentioned, I'm Director of Product Management for the Oracle Server Virtualization Technology. And I've been working this role for 10 years now. So been working with this team within Oracle to deliver server virtualization to our customers, and we've been doing this for quite some time. Well, there was a big market change that many of you are aware of that happened almost 2 years ago now, back in November of 2023, where Broadcom acquired VMware. Now, we know that VMware is a pretty, universal solution for many customers. They've got a large market share, and they define what server virtualization is. So, very good product, very solid product. With what we've seen as 80% market share going into 2023, and it was always a fairly expensive product. It was one of the top IT spends that we heard from our customers, one of the top five, if not the top one, for the expense budget for many IT shops. Now, what happened with the Broadcom acquisition were a few things. Number one, they changed the perpetual license for VMware that they had into an annual paid subscription. So no ability to opt out. So you shifted from just a support model to a support plus license model for an annual basis. And the other big change, well, there were actually two other big changes, but one of them was instead of paying per server for that support, customers are now paying per core for both the license and the support. And we'll get into some of the pricing examples here, but it greatly inflated the price for an already expensive product to the end users. And then the other big thing was instead of having multiple options for customers to be able to select which different tools that they wanted to use within the vSphere portfolio, they went with a bundled approach. So there's 4 key bundles that we'll talk about, and you need to select one of those bundles. And there were also a number of other changes with reductions that happened. The sales teams were shuffled around. Partner programs were eliminated, then brought back into Broadcom. So many changes within what VMware had been offering. And the net effect that we heard right away back in December of 2023, moving into 2024, partners and customers are looking for alternatives. So customers were upset with the pricing. And in fact, in many cases, and we'll show this, they saw a huge increase in pricing that they couldn't pay, and they started looking for alternatives. So intro, I've already done this. So we offer an alternative. So it's Oracle Virtualization, and I'll get into an overview of what it is and how it benefits customers. The starting point of our solution is Oracle Linux, and Oracle Linux is based on the kernel, the Linux kernel, which we use, and we create our own version of the kernel, which is the Unbreakable Enterprise kernel. But within the kernel, the Linux kernel is the ability to run virtualization. So you've got KVM, kernel virtualization module, which allows you to set up Oracle Linux, in our case, as a hypervisor. So this has been part of our solution, our Oracle Linux distribution, for 20 years now, since we've been delivering Oracle Linux. As the title implies, we're big into open source projects, and not just within the Linux product, but we'll get into the management platform that we're now using, Ansible, Kubernetes. We offer a number of open source projects as Oracle supported versions. So we'll get into that a little bit, but we feel very strongly that open source is a very great alternative. It gives customers the ability to make choices, but also not get locked in. And what we've also seen in the marketplace is when you look at KVM, the hypervisor, it's got very high performance. It scales very nicely. It runs very quickly. It starts up very quickly. Oracle is using it as the foundation for our current cloud, which is the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, aka OCI. So Oracle Linux KVM is the foundation there. We use it to run all of our workloads within OCI. We also deliver KVM as the hypervisor for a lot of our engineered systems, including Exadata. So we've consolidated and focused on KVM as the hypervisor choice that we're delivering to our end customers because we think it scales, we think it performs, we think it's the solution that offers our customers the ability to have that open source option. But also many people understand KVM because it is used not just within Oracle, but in other public clouds. So it's a very widely deployed, it's a viable and reliable general purpose virtualization solution. So we feel very comfortable and we feel very big on moving forward with KVM as our hypervisor across the board. Going back about, I'd say 7-8 years ago now, what we added to the KVM hypervisor, which again is the foundation. So for those of you that are running VMware today or other server virtualization technologies, for VMware, our KVM hypervisor, it's a type 1 hypervisor. It is your ESXi, so it's what's running all your virtual machines, running all of your workloads. So that's the second bullet there. That's the second piece of the overall solution. What we added on top of KVM, though, about 8 years ago was a management platform, which we call the Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager. It is based on another open source project. So again, we're big on open source, and it is the Overt project. And we both utilize this open source project. We contribute to the open source project. And we're not just using the open source. When we take any open source project, we build it ourselves from the sources, but then we also thoroughly test it to make sure that we can stand behind that as an enterprise grade, in this case, hypervisor server virtualization solution. And we also get our support team ready to handle any questions that come in or work through any issues. So it's more than just an open source project. We're testing it and we're supporting it. We're also fully documenting what's available and how you would utilize the product. So that's the overall solution. The third piece that's listed here for customers that want to run Windows workloads within their virtualization environment, our Oracle VirtIO driver is what's available. All three of these pieces are available within our Yum repositories and our software delivery cloud. There's no license, there's no fee to download the product. It's an open environment to download and start testing with these products anytime that you want to. they are covered. All pieces here that are shown here are covered by our Oracle Linux Premier support. So that's what you would have to give you the confidence and the ability to look at some of our knowledge articles and file tickets or talk to our support team. So it's all covered by Oracle Linux Premier Plus support. That VirtIO driver that I mentioned for running Windows workloads, it is a signed and certified driver by Microsoft. It is published in their Windows Server catalog. And as such, Microsoft recognizes Oracle Linux KVM as a hypervisor that they will troubleshoot if there's any problems running Windows workloads within our solution. So we've got a relationship there with Microsoft to ensure that you can both run these Windows workloads, but also get the support if you need support. This is your VMware tool. So if you look at the VMware solution today, vCenter is Oracle Linux Virtualization Manager. Your ESX is going to be your Oracle Linux KVM, and your VMware tools are your drivers, your Oracle VirtIO drivers to support those Windows workloads. So these are the main components of the solution. If I take a look at the solution from more of a graphical perspective, you'll see on the left here is the what we call our admin dashboard. So this is your opening dashboard for your manager. Again, this is your single pane of glass that you're going to use to manage your environment. You will be setting up your KVM host or adding your KVM host to your environment through this admin portal. A very user-friendly graphical user interface that also has a full REST API that we expose for customers that want to build automation or automate a number of their tasks that they run on a day-to-day basis. So full REST API gets exposed. The workflows in this management platform, this admin dashboard, allow you to both set up those KVM hypervisors, to build virtual machines, to build your virtual storage and your virtual networking. It's all done through this admin dashboard, and it's very user-friendly and very intuitive, very nice workflows that kind of walk you through the process of doing your day-to-day tasks. A lot of commonality to the server virtualization technology that you're using today. So the names might be different, but the commonality is very similar there. And it does scale very nicely. So in a single platform here, the management platform, you can run over 1,000 Oracle Linux KVM hosts with over 10,000 virtual machines. So it's a very high scaling, high performing engine that runs everything. And then you get this dashboard that you see here that allows you to see your overall environment, but then also drill down into your virtual machine views or into your KVM host views, which I'll show you in a screenshot here later on. So what I've mentioned was you've got your management platform, you add your Oracle Linux KVM host. This solution today is part of our Oracle Linux 8 offering, which has a long life cycle still left in it. But both the manager and the KVM hypervisor are currently Oracle Linux 8 based. And then from a guest OS perspective, you can run any number of the guests, the operating system that I'm showing on the screen here, everything from Oracle Linux, of course, the current versions of Oracle Linux that are supported, through Red Hat Enterprise Linux to CentOS to Ubuntu, Rocky, Alma Linux, all these are supported. We also support the Windows versions that I show here. So Windows Desktop and Windows Server versions with that VirtIO driver that I shared on the previous screen. So very universal coverage here. All the top operating systems that what we find talking to our prospects and customers, this is what they're using. So we cover these operating systems within our environment. Now, taking a little more close-up view here of that admin dashboard that I showed you earlier, here's another screenshot that shows what the admin dashboard looks like. You get a single view here of how many virtual data centers, how many clusters you've got set up, how many hosts. In this case, I've got 752 hosts that are running in this particular environment. I've got 13,000 virtual machines in this environment, so a very large deployment here, but this product does scale very nicely. And then you've got events, so you can go see, when you've got alerts that are popping up about certain things that you might need to take action on, all within this admin dashboard. And if you want to drill down further to get more information, there's a couple ways to do it. You can click, let's say you want to see your virtual machine view to see all of your virtual machines, or get a listing of the virtual machines so you can narrow it down and search on an individual VM that you want to look at, or you want to sort them. You could do that with the virtual machine view. You get there from either clicking on your admin dashboard where you've got the 13,247 virtual machines, or if you want to use the menus on the left there, you can go into the compute menu, and then a sub-menu will drop up showing you the virtual machine view. So multiple ways to get the information. You could also use the REST API, like I talked about earlier, to get a full rundown of the different virtual machines that are in your environment. And from that point, you can drill down into the individual virtual machines for more information. Or if you want to edit it or do some management on that, you can do that through the menus that you walk through or through the clicking in your typical Windows kind of workflow here. So that's just a high-level view of the solution itself, what the main components are. Typically, when we're working with prospects or customers, they've got questions about feature functionality. What do we support here? And I've got a summary here of some of the key features that we get asked about many times about, do we support these features? And the answer on all of these is yes. We support all the key core server virtualization features that you're using today. And if I run down the list here, things like taking a running virtual machine and taking a snapshot of it, or high availability, live migration, disaster recovery, role-based access, so the ability to have multiple users with different levels of access and control, and also the audit capability to see who does what. That's all part of the solution here. Now, there are some cases where the names are different between what is offered in VMware versus what we offer in Oracle Virtualization, but the functionality is the same. A couple of examples of that are, you might be familiar with the term of vMotion, the ability to take a running virtual machine and move it from a host to another host, either because you want to evacuate it or because you want to do maintenance on a host, or you just want to level load across that host, across your cluster. On our side, that would be a live migration. Same functionality, just different term. Similarly, when you look at things like DRS, Distributed Resource Scheduler, on our platform, that would be a scheduling policy. So these are thresholds that you set up to enable that live migration. So if you want to, let's say, have level loaded, based on the number of virtual machines, level loaded hosts within a cluster, you could use scheduling policies to automatically shift workloads amongst the cluster, so you've got level utilization across those different servers. So that happens automatically with live migration. Same functionality, just a different name, but we've got all the key features that are needed by customers. And it's something that we've proven out many times as we've worked with customers to do things like proof of concepts to show them the functionality, show them that this server virtualization platform does meet the requirements. So why do we think Oracle Virtualization is an alternative? So a few key areas. I've talked about the equivalent functionality that is there with Oracle Virtualization. I'll talk a little bit about cost here, but some key things. I've mentioned the Oracle Linux Premier Plus support. It's very cost effective, and what you'll see is it's looking at the cost of the Premier Plus support compared to what you would be paying for Broadcom VMware today. It's going to be a huge difference there because we don't license it. It's open source licensing, but there's no license to utilize the Oracle product. It's all open source, like I said earlier. So it doesn't lock you in, and it gives us the ability to offer this solution at a much better price to you. Then the other piece that we get asked about, which I'll get into here a little bit, is how do we do the migration from VMware to Oracle Virtualization? We've got some tools within our product itself that you can utilize. We've got partners such as RackWare that can be utilized as well. So we'll get into that a little bit here also. But we know how to do the migrations. We've got strong partnership that enable those migrations also. We often get asked by customers, okay, so what about hardware support, server support? What about application support within Oracle Virtualization? What about different applications that we want certified? Yes to all those. We do work with Oracle, of course, because we are Oracle from a server virtualization technology. All of our applications, including database, Fusion middleware, all the applications are built and tested on Oracle Linux KVM. So the products that Oracle delivers from an application perspective are tested and run through their exercises on Oracle Linux KVM. So in some cases, we deliver templates to get you up and running with things like database very quickly. But We work very closely with the Oracle teams to ensure that Oracle applications run efficiently and optimally on Oracle Server Virtualization, but it is a universal platform. So any application that you're running today, as long as the guest operating system supported on Oracle Linux KVM, like I shared earlier, it will run within our environment also, so there's no issue there. But we do take extra steps. So we work with our application partners to do certifications in many cases to ensure that if there's a joint issue that we need to resolve, we've got that partnership set up. We do the same thing on hardware. So it's an x86 server virtualization technology. So you can take any x86 platform and run it. But we also have partnerships with the likes of HPE and Lenovo to ensure that we've got certified versions of those platforms that we've jointly certified that we can offer to you as optimum solutions there. So we work with all applications. We work with any hardware. It's not just an Oracle or an Oracle type of solution. And when I look at Oracle virtualization, we focus on the virtualization. So that's our core strength is server virtualization. What we do in many cases, we work with best of breed partners to ensure that we can extend the capability of server virtualization into a number of different areas. Some of those areas are listed here, like being able to offer backup and restore functionality or virtual SAN functionality or configuration management tools, microsegmentation. We work with the best of breed companies that do this on a day-to-day basis. They know backup and restore, they know virtual SAN. So we work with them to ensure that we've got integrations. We also, with our open product that we offer, the open API and just the overall openness of our software, we work with vendors and partners to ensure that there is integrations there. And in many cases, what we found, there have been cases where partners have integrated with the overt project. And because we don't deviate or fork at all from the overt project, we can offer the same functionality and they can test it out very quickly to ensure that if the integration is there within overt, works the same way within Oracle virtualization also. Now, getting to the second to last bullet there about migrations, again, this is something that comes up regularly. Customers say, okay, we love the functionality, we love the pricing. In some cases, I'm showing that customers can save 10 to 15 times based on what they're seeing with their Broadcom VMware pricing. So there's a huge cost advantage there. But then the other thing is, okay, how do I do the migration? Well, RackWare comes into play. And RackWare is a partner, like Brian mentioned earlier, that Oracle's been working with for many years now. I know that RackWare had done a lot of work in the past to do the product that precedes the Oracle virtualization is our Oracle VM product. So we've been doing server virtualization for 20 years now, but we did shift to Oracle Linux KVM. Well, before that, we had our Xen hypervisor, which was Oracle VM. And RackWare had done a lot of work to migrate workloads from Oracle VM into OCI from our first generation cloud to our second generation cloud. So they are a great partner that we've worked with over the years. And when the Broadcom acquisition happened, we reached out and connected again to talk about how do we migrate from VMware into Oracle virtualization. And had a kind of an intro call, and it was with David and Brian and a few others. And literally within a matter of a couple of weeks, it shocked me to see how quickly RackWare could pull together the integration and show us that they can migrate workloads from VMware into Oracle Linux virtualization. So I'm going to stop sharing right now, and I'm going to stop talking. And again, I'm going to look at the Q&A window here. But at this point, I'm going to hand it off to David, because David's going to go through a little bit or more in depth about what RackWare offers. So David, it's over to you right now.
Great. Thank you, John. Thank you for that deep dive in the benefits of KVM and OLVM. I can honestly attest how easy it is to set up and manage an Oracle Linux KVM and OLVM environment. Since the new version 8 has been out, I've actually been having our engineers move off onto OLVM from VMware, again, due to pricing. But I just really, really like the product. It's very strong. And for any of you out there that are used to managing a VMware environment, OLVM has all the tools you need. So I'm going to speak a lot about kind of RackWare and Oracle and kind of the better together story and how we can help you move those customers off of their current environments, whether that's VMware, on-prem, physical servers, or even in the cloud. Maybe they've got some hybrid running in AWS, and they want to bring all that back into their OLVM environment that's sitting in their own data center. And RackWare is the software that works with OLVM and Oracle Linux KVM to help bring those customers and move those workloads into the OLVM environment. So it's a software package that's deployed as a virtual machine, typically in the OLVM environment. This could be on-prem in the customer environment. It doesn't matter. I'm going to show you how that works. But there's some main use cases that RackWare supports. There's our assessment, which kind of helps you with the planning of migrating those live workloads. You've got thousands of machines. You may have your RV tools information, but the RackWare assessment is going to dig deeper and give you even more information to help you analyze and even monitor those workloads prior to your actual cloud migration. So we're going to do all the basics of server inventory, and we're going to help you with the application affinity. And then we're going to give you, all of the information relating to monitoring CPU, network traffic, disk usage, and things like that over time that will allow you to right size these workloads into that OLVM environment. So we're going to be able to tell you, do you have enough CPU to run this workload? Do you have enough memory? Or maybe it was oversubscribed because it was a physical server, and how much disk space to use. So we're going to help you optimize that environment within OLVM through our assessment and analysis phase. And then once we have the assessment analysis, we'll be able to very easily do that lift and shift. So we're going to help you move those workloads, production workloads that are running, whatever environment that is, into OLVM without disruption of the actual production workloads. And I've got a live demo, so don't worry, I don't have too many slides, a couple slides here I'm going to talk to, but I have an environment that I set up with OLVM and VMware and all that, and RackWare, and we're going to actually do some of these workflows. So we can do this lift and shift. We can move those running workloads into OLVM and have them running in your OLVM environment. And you don't need to shut those workloads down until you're ready to do what we call the final delta sync, which is just to sync those bits of changes across from the initial synchronization. Quiesce those workloads, delta sync, and you're up and running in OLVM with very, very minimal downtime and very minimal impact in the production environment. And that migration supports, a lot of confluences. So we can do, the on-prem into OLVM, we can do cloud into OLVM, physical server into OLVM, and we support, everything that is supported within those operating systems themselves. So databases support, including SAP HANA, in-memory databases, and then of course with the Oracle databases using the Oracle tools in conjunction with RackWare to move those over into OLVM. Simple workflows, and even we do some network replication. From the migration aspect, we can then go a step further. After we've migrated these workloads into OLVM, we can also offer disaster recovery and backup tool sets to expand upon what is already there within OLVM itself. So we can offer you like, region to region OLVM disaster recovery. We can offer you individual backup for each virtual machine, snapshot capabilities, rolling back in time, where you can actually go back and redeploy a host completely from a snapshot, or you can actually just restore individual files and folders. And I'll show you a little bit what that looks like. And then last use case kind of goes with steady state monitoring, more for disaster recovery, where we're going to completely, keep monitoring your source workloads for any changes, CPU, memory, things like that. So we want to be able to alert you if you need to make any adjustments within your production or the DR environment itself. So we have some other pieces that are going to help you do some workload modernization and then of course protection. So we have a workflow that can help you with modernizing those operating systems or even converting them from like CentOS to Oracle Linux after we've done the migration for you without impact on production. I'll kind of show you what that looks like. We've got the any-to-any migration into OLVM. You don't have to do any manual refactoring. Everything is automatic with RackWare. It's very push button. And then for disaster recovery, everything is very simple, policy driven across both the OLVM and the hybrid environments. And then we support, FedRAMP High, IL5, GDPR, and then sovereign use cases. And then the RackWare product itself, it's not a SaaS product, so it's air-gapped. You deploy basically an instance that's running Oracle Linux 8. You install the RackWare application on top of that, and that fits and all data stays within your sovereignty itself. So there's no phone home, there's no access to anywhere else. All the data, the entire mechanism sits within that customer's environment. And of course, cost effective. And, we deal with right sizing and to help you set specific sizing within the target host themselves. So some use cases, I'm not going to talk about all these because I really want to have time to show you everything. But of course, this is a very big VMware exit model here. It's going to allow you to move thousands or however many workloads out of VMware into OLVM, can help you with KVM consolidation. And I think one of the keys is that we can do physical to virtual very easily. So you can virtualize all the physical servers within the environment into running OLVM instances themselves. And then we help move the Oracle databases, and we've got application modernization. Yep, air-gapped, edge-to-edge core resiliency here, and ransomware recovery. This is huge. So I'll show you a little bit about what this looks like to be able to recover from ransomware, because we're able to do full restores into both the production or the disaster recovery environment from snapshots if you've enabled the RackWare disaster recovery. So really high level how this works. You deploy this RackWare engine, typically in the target environment, but it doesn't matter if you're doing migrations. It can be even in the VMware environment. It just needs a layer 3 network connection back to the production environment. We're going to connect into the source workloads directly. We don't connect into the hypervisor. We're actually going to connect into the operating systems of those workloads. We're going to run a quick assessment analysis. Then we're going to synchronize that data back into the OLVM environment. And then we're going to be able to perform what we call delta synchronization. So after we do the heavy lifting and you validate those targets, we'll be able to go ahead and perform individual delta synchronizations where we just kind of sync the bits of change across until you're ready to do your final cutover. And that's non-disruptive to the production environment. It's very efficient and it's completely automated. The topology or the architecture is very simple. So you have the RackWare engine deployed. It just needs layer 3 connectivity on port 22 to the source hosts. It needs layer 3 connectivity on port 22 to the targets. We're going to do everything across the network. Everything is going to be through a secure SSH connection end-to-end, passwordless. And then if you're going to do disaster recovery, you will have given this RackWare engine some additional storage to be able to hold the snapshots and that data for backups and be able to perform the disaster recovery functions. And then access is just your typical web access and port 22 to get into the RackWare engine. So that can be through a jump server or however you VPN or whatever you do for that. And again, the RackWare engine can be completely firewalled off. So it's a single port and a single IP address accessing both the production and the target networks themselves. So yeah, so let's go ahead and do the demo here. I want to take enough time here. So what I have is I'm going to kind of walk you through each of those use cases as best as possible in this time. So I have within our OLVM environment here, I've deployed a RackWare RMM server. And that's really just, I've deployed an Oracle Linux 8 operating system as an instance within OLVM. And on top of that, I've installed the RackWare software and added the necessary licensing. And I've already have the layer 3 connectivity between my production environment, which is this VMware environment here. I've got some source machines that we're going to work with. And of course, it has access to my target networks within OLVM itself. So that's the setup. It's very simple. I'm going to bounce around a little bit here because in order to get you some really interesting stuff for assessment, I've got a whole nother environment set up that we don't want to wait to run the monitoring and analysis on, because that's kind of something you do over the length of time. But what I do is I will upload a wave, which is just a list of hosts that I wish RackWare to run that assessment analysis against. So I've got a few waves in here, and each wave has a few hosts that I have gone ahead and uploaded and run my assessment and analysis against. And the information that is brought back to RackWare is detailed information relating to each individual host. So I can see here are my hosts. I've gone ahead and after I've run that assessment and monitoring for some time, so that monitoring grabs more information the longer you run it. It's going to allow you to give you more information about peak utilization for CPU and memory. It's also going to help us with the key feature here is dependency mapping. So we make sure that we've got a list of hosts, but maybe there's some hosts that are interconnected with that. We really don't know how all of these are talking to each other. So when we run the assessment analysis, it's going to bring us all this information that you would expect, the IP address, the host name, the operating system and the version, CPU count, memory, SSH port. What you get from RackWare is, because we're connecting in at the OS level, we actually know how much disk is used across the entire file system itself. So even if this has a 7 gig disk because it's a physical server, we know that it's only using 16 gigs of data across all the volumes on that actual hard disk itself. So whether it's physical or virtual, it's going to go in there and tell you how much used data is across the entire file systems. So we're going to get the information such as, break down each file system, the amount that's used on each one, the size, and how much to use and how much is free. And that really helps us when we plan these huge migrations. When you've got thousands of machines, you need to know how much actual used data is across those 1,000 machines, not just how big the disks are. So we can plan with our data stores within OLVM itself or storage clusters. So RackWare is going to grab all that information for you. It's going to tell you what applications are installed on each of these individual virtual machines or these workloads themselves. Then we're going to get down into the analysis. So here's kind of this interesting analysis where we're going to look at CPU usage and disk bandwidth and network bandwidth. And we're going to give you kind of the current, the average, and the peak usage across this. And you can use that for that right sizing when you move these over into your target OLVM environment. And then key is your dependency mapping. And this is what's going to help you when you've got 1,500 machines you want to bring across. We're going to take a look at each of these hosts, and we're going to tell you what are the incoming connections and what are the outgoing connections from this host. So who is talking to this host and who is it talking to, whether it's connecting into AD or a database, or it's a web server that's connecting into a database. So we're going to help you map all this out so you can move everything within specific groups, so you can move the entire application over into OLVM and everything else that's dependent upon that application or the database. We're going to help you break that down into different waves. So when you have lots and lots of machines that you need to move across, you want to move them in specific waves to bring the entire application over, PeopleSoft or whatever you have, SAP HANA coming across. We're going to help you do that if you don't know what all the interconnectedness is. So this is a high level. Of course, you can set roles and tags and do a whole lot of things, which really makes a big difference in the planning phase, because once you've got the planning done, it's very easy to do the actual migration. I'm going to show you how easy it is. It's literally like 3 clicks and it starts migrating these workloads across. So you can imagine assessment comes in, looks at all this for you, helps with the planning. Then what we do is we go ahead and we say, well, help me plan some waves. I have these 1,500 servers. Now what do I do with them? So you come over to RackWare, say, help me plan some waves. A lot of options here. Mostly you can just click through to next. defaults will take you where you need to be 99% of the time. So RackWare is going to look at all these hosts. It's going to say, oh, what's my principal host? Probably the database, probably the AD server, and help me plan some waves. So right here, very quickly, we come back to our waves, and we have two new waves. One's called infrastructure. So RackWare says, hey, you got an AD server and a couple Splunk servers. They're all communicating. This is infrastructure. You probably want to move these over together in one group. And then it took a look and it said, okay, I found this Microsoft SQL server, and I've got some Apache and IIS. They're all talking to each other through that dependency mapping. So you probably want to move these over together as one group or one wave. So that's really high level of what assessment looks like for RackWare and how it helps plan these things. So if we come over here to our source VMware infrastructure, and then we come back to our OLVM server, and we see we have a few machines that are kind of running. These are some machines that are just sitting there already or hosted in our RackWare server itself. And then I have my RackWare engine that's running within OLVM. And so what I'll do is I'll come over here to Waves, and I will grab a list of servers that I've already kind of set up here. Let me grab that for you. So we'll say we're going to create a wave. And of course, we can do this through the GUI and add a few hosts, but when you're dealing with thousands of hosts, it's easier to kind of do this through a file. So I will go ahead and upload what I call my migration wave file. And I'll show you what those look like once we kind of kick this off. And I'm going to say, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to discover these hosts. So I've got two machines within this. I'm going to discover. I'm going to tell RackWare, go ahead and create this wave. And this could be 2, this could be 1,000, it could be 10,000, doesn't matter. And then the next thing I want to do is we're going to run our assessment. So let's go ahead and just hit the play button, and we'll let this go. So this will just take a moment. What's happening is RackWare's engine is going out to each of these two machines, and it's grabbing all that metadata about those machines that we saw within the assessment itself. So it's grabbing all the information about the CPU and the memory, and it's going to even start a really quick analysis. It won't have much data because it needs to run over time. And then it's going to go ahead and look for any dependencies it has. The console here is very easy to navigate. So we have drop downs that kind of tell you where we are within each of the processes themselves. And if you want to grab any log files, it's very simple just to take a look here at the log files. This helps for any troubleshooting for migrations and things like that for the really complex systems. You click here, it'll load all these details, and it'll tell you exactly what's happening in the background. Takes a moment or two to load. We're not going to wait for that because I really want to kind of keep things moving here for you. All right, so our Linux host is discovered. So we can come back through here. We can look at our hosts, and we'll find our hosts are online. Oh, sorry, it's still running in the wave, so we just have to wait a moment here. There we go. All right, so both our Windows and Linux hosts have been discovered. WinDelay's running, so we can take a quick look. And so here's our information that I showed you from the other system here, applications, analysis, dependencies. I don't have anything within these here that are set up, but this is going to tell us that it's running in VMware, how many disks it has, and again, it's going to tell us the actual used space. So I've run this analysis, I've gathered my data, I've made my decisions, I've created my waves, and the next thing I want to do is I want to be able to move these hosts from my VMware environment into my OLVM environment. So the next thing I need to do is I simply need to give RackWare my OLVM information. And I've already done that. So here, if I go to my cloud users, this is where I add my target auto provisioning credentials. So this will allow me to add my OLVM, and I can choose my target environment. So here we could go to OCI, we can go to OLVM, and this is where I add my username, password, and my certificate. That's going to allow RackWare to make those API calls into OLVM, deploy resources, and then the RackWare engine will actually sync that data. So we'll come over here back to our wave, and I will give it the target information for OLVM itself. So just auto provision, choose my target cloud environment here. So my OLVM server, and then my cluster. Okay. And I apply that. And I'm just going to move the Linux machine over for now because that'll happen pretty quickly. The Windows takes a little bit longer because there's more data. But this is where I would enable or disable particular hosts. If I have thousands of machines, I can enable a specific host that I want to move in this group or move them over into a different wave. I can also set these in different counts. So how many do you want to sync at the same time? You probably don't want to try and sync 500 machines at the same time, network bandwidth, things of that nature. So you'll go ahead and set this to possibly, maybe 20 or 30 hosts at the same time. RackWare will sync them, and as soon as one completes, it'll sync the next one over. So add that auto provisioning information and just hit the play button. And so we'll take a look down here in our dropdown. This all takes just a minute or two for it to kick in. And while we're waiting for this to go, I'll show you what this looks like in the back end. So let's come back over to our slide deck here. So what's happening underneath the covers is we have our RackWare engine deployed in our OLVM environment. It will connect into the source host and it'll run that assessment analysis. We have a deep assessment analysis and a kind of a quick assessment analysis. It's going to run the quick assessment analysis to get the metadata. Then it's going to use that information to provision similar hardware within OLVM itself. So it's going to create the OLVM instance, a virtual machine with the correct number of disks, and attach it to the correct networks. Then it's going to run the sync command, where it will then synchronize the data from all of the file systems on the source host through the RackWare server. So it's a pass-through. All the data passes through the RackWare server, and then it gets written to the correct disks on the OLVM instance. It will then inject all the drivers that are necessary for this to run in OLVM correctly. So you don't even have to come over to the Windows source machine or the Linux source machine. You don't have to add any drivers. You don't need to change production. You don't touch production machines. Everything happens automatically in the target environment. So we're going to inject the drivers. We're going to configure those drivers. We're going to configure all the networking information. And then once we're done there, we're going to tell this host to boot up into its actual operating system. So that's where we're going to go ahead and say, all right, everything is set and we're ready to actually boot into the OS. All right, we'll take a look here. Oh, sorry, I forgot to change one thing on our migration real quick. So we have to set one change here. We were doing a deep discover here, but what we want now is to go ahead and set up our auto provision. And we're going to say direct sync, hit modify, and we'll kick this off here again. So we have to give it target information here. There we go. All right, so this source host is going to go ahead and run through the examine. After it does that examine, it will then go ahead and create those target machines. So we've got our examine running here. Give it about 30 seconds, and we'll get to our auto provisioning. So RackWare itself, the engine, can support all of these different use cases very easily. It's just a matter of opening up different licensing for assessment, migration, and disaster recovery. Everything is supported in the same product. You don't have to install multiple products. It's really just a matter of opening up by licensing here. So here's the steps. We did that quick examine, and the next is the auto provision. So if we come over here, this will still take a few moments here, but there it is. So the RackWare engine connected into OLVM itself, and it created this virtual machine. Looks like it just added the disk to that one. And so if this source machine was a Windows machine with 17 different disks on there of different sizes, RackWare would have looked at that, created the virtual machine, 17 disks, including the system disk, and then it's going to format all of those disks to match the formatting of the source host, and then it's going to start to transfer all of that data over into that target environment. And that's it. That's literally migration. The rest of it is just kind of watching paint dry. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that, but this is going to start to transfer the data, and after all that data transfers, you're going to have an exact copy of your source production workload now running in OLVM. And the only difference may be that it might have some drivers that are injected. And of course, you might have placed it onto a different network. It might have some different routes, but all of that is configurable within RackWare itself. So here we can take a look at some of the advanced options for OLVM. So we can set, of course, our VNIC profiles. We can choose which cluster, which storage domain this is going to be put onto. We can support multiple NICs. So even if the source has multiple NICs, you want your target to have multiple NICs, we can have multiple NICs. We can set different routes. And then remember, I spoke to you about what these wave files look like. So if we look here at a migration wave file, this is all it is. It's really just a list of the source hosts and their IP addresses. I can put some other information in here, but I can get very particular about how I want these deployed. So I can choose again my cluster, my data store, my VNIC profile. But for those of you that do a lot of migrations and understand what's happening under the covers, you can choose what type of NIC attachment you need. So here, VirtIO, possibly an older OS may require an E1000 NIC. So here's where you just put the E1000. Whether the disk provisioning needs to be IDE, SATA, or VirtIO, that's also configurable. So by default, you don't need to know these things. RackWare is going to make the best choices, but for those that need the ability to make those very specific hardware configurations, everything is supported here in these CSV files that allows you to do that. This is where you can set how many cores you want deployed and how much memory also. So all of this is easily set up in this spreadsheet. So if you have thousands of machines, you can literally build your migration out ahead of time, and you'll just perform the drag and drop with RackWare, give it that target information, and away you go. So that's migration. I've got a few minutes. I'm going to kind of show you how really easy it is to set up disaster recovery. So for disaster recovery, it's a little bit different because we're going to save some data to the RackWare data store itself. So I'll come here and I'll create a wave. Let me grab this wave here, and we're going to do what we call a capture. Okay, and then we're going to capture this host. I got 2 hosts in this wave. Create this wave. All right, and we're not going to do pass-through, so we'll disable that right there. And I'm going to have a parallel count to 0, so I want both of these to sync at the same time. So here, I'm just going to capture my hosts. Let's see here. Yep, we've got this. And we'll hit play. So what happens with disaster recovery? And let me grab this in the background. So with disaster recovery, similar, but you've got RackWare communicating with the source hosts, runs the capture command. So first we bring the metadata back to RackWare about the CPU and memory and the OS and things like that. And then we capture all the data to the RackWare data store itself. So here we're holding a copy of all the source host data along with the metadata, so we have a picture of what we need when we want to build the target machine. So it's using that same migration technology, except under the covers, we're going to keep the data stored within the RackWare disaster recovery deployed engine itself that lives within the DR environment. So we're going to keep a copy here. We're going to be able to configure snapshots against this. And with this captured image, after we've got the initial data, we will deploy that target host. And this is kind of where you get into some configuration options. For the cloud, it works really great because if you're going to the cloud, you can capture the data, and then you don't have to have resources running in the cloud. You can keep everything within storage. And when you have a disaster event, you can have RackWare provision these servers. But with OLVM, since you kind of own all the environment, you can just have RackWare pre-create the target machines unless you have resource restrictions. And it will just continue to sync the data from the source host to the captured image. And then from our captured image, we're just going to keep that running virtual machine updated. So you can have very aggressive RPOs and RTOs, and it's all configured by policy. And again, all that driver injection, everything like that happens at this level in the target environment. And so if we circle back around to what we were speaking about earlier, about like OS upgrades or conversions from CentOS to say Oracle Linux, if you look here in our migration topology, we're going to clone the source host, and let's say this is CentOS 7 right now, and we're going to have a CentOS 7 virtual machine running in our OLVM environment. Production can continue to run. But what you can do is you can go ahead and you can take this new target machine and you can run through the entire conversion process to move this from CentOS 7 to Oracle Linux 7 and test this in this target environment without affecting production. Once you have the process, which is, it's a very simple process, it's a few commands and it's a script literally that needs to run on the target environment, and you're satisfied with what this looks like, you can actually give that script to RackWare to run as a plugin, and it will go ahead and sync the source host into OLVM. After it's synced it and created the target server itself, it will trigger the plugin and it'll perform that OS conversion for you. Once that's done, your target machine is now your Oracle Linux 7 virtual machine running an OLVM with nearly no user interactions. So you can take all the time you want and you can run through different scenarios with conversions while with RackWare without having to disrupt the production machine itself. And then at any point in time, you can always perform delta syncs to bring it back to the CentOS 7 version and then run through the plugin again. So we have a lot of different options for you there. And that's just a really high level of what RackWare can do. After we've done this disaster recovery capture, we would configure a policy. So we create this policy that gives us our RPO and RTOs. And then what the backup looks like here is we can go into, I've kind of pre-configured what some of this looks like, but we have our instances, and then we can go back in time for our versions. And then each version allows you to restore individual files or restore the entire host from this snapshot for ransomware recovery. And that can be both to production environment or into the target DR environment. So I know we're right there with just a minute left. I think everybody's been putting their questions in the Q&A. Hopefully they're being answered. And how to engage RackWare, you can definitely just reach us at info@rackwareinc.com. You can go to our website, you can schedule a meeting, launch assistance, and in free trials and licenses is not a problem. If you want to deploy this within your own environment, just reach out to info@rackwareinc.com and we'll get you all the licenses you need for all of these workflows.
Okay, well, thank you very much, David. And John, thank you also. I think it was a really compelling presentation from both of you. John, anything else you want to add as far as outreach from people for OLVM?
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and thanks again for setting this up and doing the joint presentation here. Yeah, for any further information, best to reach out to your Oracle sales person, sales consultants, account manager. They'd be happy to walk through the server virtualization technology and get you all set up there. I think we answered the questions. There were a couple questions that came in. I know one was about the kind of where we're going from an Oracle virtualization, and the high level answer there is we're moving forward both on the KVM front, the VirtIO front. I talked about some of the releases we've done there, and also on the manager side of things. And we're working with the community. The overt community is still out there. We're contributing code, and we do have a going forward plan here to move to the new version of Oracle Linux 9. So it's something we're working on right now. So a lot of work to be done still, and looking forward to working with any of the prospects or customers here that want to work with us.
Fantastic. Thank you very much again, John and David. Thank you. With that, we will wrap this session.